The views and opinions expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of our partners, hosts, or affiliates. Our goal is to support short track racing and the dedicated men and women who make it possible while providing entertainment for our listeners. Now, sit back, enjoy the show, and let's hear the stories.
They said, one day you're going to wake up and realize that you spent your whole life with this racing deal.
That thing was like a puzzle when he showed up with it.
Line it all up.
And we put it on there. That was it. Simple as that. There wasn't nothing else out behind it other than that. Man, and it took funny. Off. The kids liked it.
Oh,
then,
yeah.
I went,
You played into it.
I did. Fire suit.
Yeah,
I went the whole
thing.
Yeah, Dale.
Spider-Man there for a while.
Yeah.
And you haven't experienced anything else.
I run that thing so hot, I remember it switched off. The checker, it had no gauge in it.
Right,
I didn't know, but it switched off, and I didn't know why. Well, it locked up, it runs so hot.
And you've missed out on a lot of other things.
Like I told y'all earlier, there ain't much missing to it no more. I faded to a bottle rocket.
And my comment back was, yeah, but I did exactly what I wanted to do.
I want to know the stories. I want to hear the stories. Hey guys, welcome back to the Short Track Shakedown, brought to you today by 5-Star Medicare and Blackwater Bookkeeping. I am Josh Goodwin alongside Jake Moore. Jake, how are you today, bud?
I'm doing great.
Man, we have an incredible show for y'all today. It is Father's Day, and I cannot thank this individual enough for coming, even though it is a holiday. But we have the most anticipated podcast so far, and probably rivals the most requested podcast. Is Shep Lucas. The McKenzie Missile is in the house with us today, and I can't wait to sit down and speak with him.
Yeah, when I got first time I started racing, I could hear that name. That name's always been around. The stories that he's got is going to be great.
Well, let's get him in the room and let's get this thing started.
Let's do it.
Retirement. Have you ever thought about what that word means or how it may change your life? Have you ever thought about getting on Medicare or how to even talk about getting on Medicare? You need to call Kenny Thorpe at 5-Star Medicare. They make Medicare easy. They can answer all of your questions, including about supplements to Medicare. They deal with Aetna, Cigna, Devoted Health Plans, Humana, and United Healthcare. Give Kenny a call today at 850-525-2424. Again, that's 850-525-2424. Well, Shep, thank you so much for being here with us today on Father's Day. I know y'all made the long trip down here from McKenzie, and man, we just can't thank you enough for sitting down with us today.
Glad to be here, man.
We're back to our normal schedule. The last couple episodes we've done on our off days and stuff like that, but this is our normal recording day, and we certainly appreciate you accommodating us even on Father's Day. Did you have a pretty good day today?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. We had a late night racing last night, so had to get up this morning early and go to church and get home and get the thing unloaded, cleaned up, all that good stuff. And
where'd y'all run last night?
We raced up here with Tri-County.
Yeah. I got you. How'd y'all do?
Dale ended up getting the win.
Well, no doubt.
It's about the draw. He drew good. Started on the front row of both races, and he
wore him out, huh?
He done pretty good. He's getting, he's coming around. If he starts up front, he does pretty good. It's just he has a habit of, if he don't, he likes just to follow the car ahead of him. He follow him around. I tell him, I said, man, if that car ahead of you would have went to the pits, I think you'd have followed him in there. He's getting better though.
That is good.
We having fun.
I noticed you got the CVR race cars. Do y'all still run CVRs?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been with them since I got a car from Chip in 17, I think it was. Yeah.
Y'all been with them for quite a while.
Yeah. This is my second one.
Okay.
Yeah, that car that we're racing now is it was built late 19, and we started racing it in 20.
I got you. Is that 602 or 604 car?
602.
602?
Yeah, we went 604 for about 3/4 of one season there, and we didn't do we won, I think, one feature, and then of course it pretty much faded out around here for a while. There wasn't. We showed up for a couple of races, and there was only like 4 604s, so, and there were like 10 or 12 602s, and so we went back, and it was better for us really financially and competitively, speaking. 602 is a little more home for us.
Right. I got you. Well, that is cool. Well, man, I want to kind of dive into your story. I know that, y'all have been around racing. Everybody's heard of the McKenzie Missile, and you've got a long history racing around here, especially at Milton. But I want to kind of take it back for a second. I would like to ask you a couple questions. I want to know where the 57 come from first. And I know that your dad raced prior to your involvement in motorsports. Take me through some of that and tell me how all that came to be.
Well, I don't know. I really don't actually know. I guess maybe some of his friends, I never really asked him, how he just started racing. Mm-hmm. I just knew he raced. Him and my uncle both raced. And he, of course, he raced 57 Chevrolets when they first started. They built them. Okay. And he just, because it was a 57 Chevrolet, he numbered it 57.
Damn. Okay.
And he started racing. There used to be a track outside of Op called Orbit. This was in the late 60s.
Okay.
Late 60s. And he raced there a couple of years, and then him and my uncle both. And then they actually built a track in Brooklyn. Do y'all go to Boggs and Boulders?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, just up the road from Boggs and Boulders, there's a dirt road. If you go back toward Andalusia, there's a dirt road on the south side of the Brooklyn Road there, and it's called Racetrack Road. Well, just down that dirt road, there used to be a dirt track there, Brooklyn Speedway.
I'll be damned. Is the old track still there?
You can see part of it. A guy, the family that actually owned Boggs and Boulders, the Pates, Josh, one of the guys that the younger guy there, he actually built a pond where the back straightaway used to be in a house up on the hill from it. But
I got you.
But back in I would say in the 07, 06, 07, right along in there, my dad carried me down there, and the old track was still there. The old flag stand piece of it was there. I actually found an old AC spark plug out there.
Oh wow!
And you could see some rubber still laid down in the corner.
I'll be dang.
It was all still, there was trees out there in it and all, but that was in 70, 71. Right when that track was open, and he raced it. He run a class called actually Bomber class, but it was kind of like probably Pure Stock is now or something. They run 2-barrel carburetors and wide tires and stuff like that. Him and my uncle ran a class below him called Spectator.
Okay,
and they both was real good there. I got a newspaper clipping there of the Andalusia Star News where they called him the king at Brooklyn.
Man, that is
he won
cool.
He won a lot of races in it. He actually had 2 57 Chevrolets that he built. He built one, and then he raced it a couple of years, sold it, and built another one, and that was the 257s he raced on dirt, and my uncle was number 75. He
just switched it. Okay.
Yeah, he had 57 Chevrolet too, and they done that up till I'm thinking I should have brought Elaine the train with me. My mom, she could rattle this stuff off like it,
Oh, yeah.
She remembers the very day. A lot of people accuse me of being eat up with racing because one night when she was pregnant with me down there in Brooklyn, my daddy wrecked or something out there, and they said she went over the fence.
Oh,
sure. Like pregnant with me, went out there on the track to check on him, and so they say that's what's wrong with me. A lot of folks, but
your mom and dad were always, they were kind of like the Hopkins. They were always staples at the racetrack. They were there every time y'all showed up.
Yeah. So. My mom still is right now. Yeah. She, just like today, we unload a race car. She's the first one down there, to help us get it out. And she works as hard as anybody on it. Always has. Right. She's been probably I probably wouldn't be in racing right now if it wasn't for her, really, because them weekends, you just want to quit.
Oh yeah,
sell out
she ain't
everything.
gonna let you.
She'd be down there washing the car on a trailer. You know, just
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
yeah,
That is too good. The there's a lot of them old ghost tracks up there around where y'all are from. Have you heard of that racetrack called Onika?
Oh yeah, I raced there a lot.
Did you?
Yeah.
I went there one time as a kid with Scooter, and he had an old Bullet late model chassis that brother had, and that was the coolest little racetrack. It was like a paperclip, you know.
Yep.
And but I only got to go there one time. But it's right there down from Kinston. You
It
know
is.
what I mean? And they say I haven't stopped by there in several years, but they say the racetrack's still there.
It is. I think they for a while they opened like a CDL truck driving training class there at it, and they held that there for a while, and then they that closed down. But I went by there. It's been about a year or so, and you can still see, like I say, part of the old track still there. The old tower that they used was there. You know, it was like a metal building. You know, set way all that was still there. But yeah, you could see this. You know, the track, the fencing, and all that's gone. You know, but it's we they used to run on Friday nights.
Yeah.
And I worked on Friday nights for several years, like 10 years. So I didn't get to race there much when they first opened, but then they went to Saturday nights, and I went there. It was a good bit back in, I think in 95. I had just built that new Super Street car, just got it. And that's the first place we went to going with it. And I think that was 95.
Yeah. I think they closed in 96 or 97, something.
They did, and then some other people opened it, and then
Right.
it run for a little while, and then it closed back.
Yeah.
It was hard to get fans there, you know.
Right.
They'd get cars because it was a good track, but there's nobody.
That was the only memory that I really have of that place is that was the reddest clay I believe I've ever seen.
Yeah,
it was like Georgia gumbo clay. It was like something. It was unbelievably red clay.
And it's
Alabama's
what's there.
got that.
Yeah, it was there. They didn't have to be hauled in there. You know,
That's
it didn't
good
go
thing
away.
about it.
Right. Yeah.
It was there.
But well, anyway, we'll get back on the story here. So, when you were coming up, obviously racing, watching your dad and your uncle race and this and that, when did you get the bug?
Well, my dad, when he quit racing dirt, and actually he sold his dirt cars, and he bought a Chevy 2. Him and a guy went together, a 65 Chevy 2, and it was actually an asphalt car. He actually raced it at Mobile and Montgomery. They had a 6-cylinder class.
Oh, no
It just
doubt.
had 6 cylinders in it.
Yeah.
They'd take those old 250 6-cylinders,
Yeah.
and they'd bore them out like 125 thousandths and put 327 flat top pistons in it.
Oh, wow.
And that's what they raced. Yeah, they take the manifold. And they did all this themselves. You know,
Right.
they take the old manifolds on them and cut them in half and split them and weld them, you know, cap them on the ends and then run 2 pipes out. And they'd have, they did all that, you know. And, but he, that car, that last one he had, that asphalt car, he didn't sell it. It sat in our yard for, I guess I was probably 4 or 5 when he quit racing, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And it sat in our yard my whole life till I was probably 15.
Oh, wow.
It just sat there, and I'd get in that thing, man, and act like I was driving it, you know. And I remember one time, my daddy actually had a little Chevy too that he drove all over back and forth to work. He kept it for years, and the motor went out in it. So the motor was still in that race car. He took it out and put it in that Chevy too. And I remember when he was doing that, I was helping him, you know, just doing whatever he told me to do. I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
But I was thinking, man, this is a race car motor, you know. He puts this thing in there, it's going to be, you know,
Bad to the bone,
it was just another 6-cylinder, you know. But anyway, a guy from my hometown, and you got to remember now, my uncle raced and my dad raced, and there were some people a mile up the road from us that had a mechanic shop, and they raced. So I hear all these stories growing up about the Brooklyn days,
right,
you know, from all of these people.
Right.
And they make it sound like, you know, so fun, you know, just so much. And the things that they would do at that racetrack, you know, was like, there was this guy from Andalusia, I can remember him talking about, his name was Rufus Armstrong, and he'd like to carry on stuff at the races, you know. He would like get out there at intermission at Brooklyn and be running around the track and just drive off the back straightaway because you could there. And he'd have somebody over there and they'd pour a bunch of gas out on the ground and light it, and it'd flame up, and they'd make like the car blew up and caught on fire or something, just entertain, And they would talk about stuff like that and racing.
Yeah, that's showmanship right there.
And I was thinking, man, but now at this point, I can't remember. I'd been to the races, but I was so small, I've seen pictures, I've seen all these pictures of them cars and all, and I'd hear people talking about, man, your daddy, when he raced, he and your uncle, when they raced, and I was like, I'd like to see some of this, but I hadn't, I was into football and stuff like that. Racing, I didn't, it was just race cars. Well, a guy in our hometown bought that Chevy 2 that was there in the yard. He came and got it. And Daddy told me, he said, when he gets that thing ready, he said, I'll take you to the races and we'll watch him race it, And this guy's name was Johnny Lee. I'll never forget him, man. He, when he raced, he had old Evil Knievel helmet. I'm not telling you no lie. He had old goggles.
Yeah.
And he had old cigar. He kept it in his mouth when he raced. I ain't tell you no story. Yeah. But when he got that thing ready, and we'd go over to his house and, while he's working on it, getting the motor and all in. It didn't take him long. He got it ready in 2 or 3 weeks, and he carried it to Flomaton.
No doubt.
Flomaton Speedway. That's the first place I can remember going watching a dirt track race at, and it was to see him run that car. And, man, I got there, and them cars, they was already, out there hot lapping and stuff, and I was thinking, that sounds good, and it hit me that night.
That's awesome.
I said, this is something that I want to do right here. I like this, at least want to come watch it some more.
Right, yeah.
And Daddy said, nah, I done been down that road. They wasn't no talking. Well, my uncle had actually started building a car.
Oh, another car. Okay.
Yeah, it was like an old 75 Chevelle, big car. He'd actually started when Johnny come bought that one, because him and Johnny was pretty good friends, knew each other good and all. Well, so I didn't care nothing about going over there helping him on that car until after that night. And, man, I was over there at his house every afternoon. He's working on that race car. I couldn't wait for him to get it ready so I could go back to the races, because Daddy would not take me back. That was it. He was done. Cause
he
I
didn't want you to catch a bug.
That's exactly what he was trying to keep from happening. He didn't want to get it, what he didn't want. Well, those guys that was up the road from us that's got a shop up there, they actually had an old car that was an old 56 Chevrolet that had raced back in the Brooklyn days, beat up. They wasn't a straight spot on it. I'm talking about, well, them jokers, because of Johnny, they was friends with old Johnny too. Right. They decided it still had the motor in it. It had a 6-cylinder in it. They decided they'd just try to get that thing running and take it down there. And take it to the race, to Flomaton.
Okay.
A 56 Chevrolet out there, which now this was back in 88.
Okay.
Around 87, 88, when all this is going on. And so when they done that, we got to go back to the races with them. And they actually talked Daddy into getting in that thing and driving it.
Did it really?
Yeah. And that was just all I needed. And then I had Mom on my side too.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, my uncle was about through with his car. He started racing, and I was going him some to Baker.
Okay.
That's where we went. Baker had opened up.
Okay.
Yep. And so I kept on, and finally we talked my dad into building a car. And man, I can remember when he said, all right, if you gonna help me with this thing, and we're gonna build a car, but now you're gonna work on it, you're gonna help me now. It ain't gonna be just me. I said, I'm in, Daddy. I'm in. That's what I want.
I'll do whatever I gotta do.
And so there's a guy in McKenzie there that had you're just going to kill y'all now. He had a 66 Chevelle, and it was an SS car. Big block car, 396.
No.
Yeah. I had actually went coon hunting with this guy in this car. We put the dogs in the trunk. Yeah.
And y'all cut it up and made a race car out of it.
We bought that thing for $50. I'll never forget it.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Damn. Somebody at the Barrett Jackson auction, probably shoot you for that.
They would. I mean, I want to shoot myself for it now. I mean, this car was it had one dent on it. The axle had ran out from under to something, and he had drove on it, and it had been it. But he'd pull the motor and stuff out. He was through with it. So we bought it, and
there's some classic cars, guys, that's going to be listening to this going to stroke.
Yeah. I still got the emblems off of it. I kept them. I still got them.
I kept the emblems off of it.
We still got the old frame and all, the old cage. We took the body off of it, but we still got it. And that thing it took us, of course, for me, it seemed like it took 3 years. But we had to go buy a pipe, old black iron pipe, and we just built it ourselves right there. And we got that thing going seemed like about middle of the summer, and 87, I think, 87, 88, right along in there. We got it going that summer, and Daddy raced it down at Baker. That's the only place we went was Baker. I think that was 88. Yeah, we went to Baker. They run on Friday nights.
Yep.
And that's the only place we carried it that year was Baker. We went. They had a class there. They actually had 2 hobby classes back then. They had a pro hobby and a hobby, and the difference was in the hobby class you could run a Rochester. The Rochester 2-barrel was the hobby class.
Mm-hmm.
In the pro hobbies you could run the Holly.
Okay,
that's 2 different.
4412?
Yeah,
yeah.
They had them split up, So we run the regular hobby class. My dad and my uncle did.
Do you own a small business? Do you know how much profit you made last month? Do you know what your biggest expense was last month? Do you even know that you need to know these things? Well, you need to call Blackwater Bookkeeping if you didn't answer yes to any of those questions. Steph at Blackwater Bookkeeping can help you figure out where your money's going and where it's coming from, and help you strategize your business in the best way based on the numbers. Numbers don't lie.
She can also get you ready for next year's tax season and be ahead of the game instead of behind the 8 ball. Give her a call today at 850-290-3043.
And remember, whether it's startups or cleanups, Steph can get it done.
So we raced there, and we didn't. I think Daddy won 1 or 2 races maybe, and the season ended. And we went into '89 year. We heard about the Milton track opening up,
Mm-hmm.
And so Daddy wanted to go down there. He said, that's supposed to be a nicer, bigger track. Somebody, I know who it was. It was a guy named Gary Lee. He was from Andalusia.
Mm-hmm.
He had went down there already and raced, and had told Daddy about it in the '89 year. So we started going to Milton.
Mm-hmm.
And, man, I can remember the first time we went down there.
That was in its heyday. I mean, it was brand new.
Yep. It was. Yep. Matter of fact, that video I posted on there, I think Daddy run second that night.
Did he?
And
really?
that was like the second or third time we ever went there, with that car.
Huh.
Man, everybody loved that video. I mean, it got shared. Everybody loved that video.
I got so many. I've got hundreds of. See, and up there at McKenzie, my mom and dad hauled like the football equipment everywhere and all.
Right.
They was in the quarterback club, big supporters and all. So the quarterback club had bought a camera, VHS camera.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So we had access to it.
Uh-huh.
So mom videoed, all my races when I first started. My dad racing back then, I got it all on VHS, but
Oh,
man,
we got to find a way to get that.
Well,
trying
there
to
is.
convert that stuff.
Well, there is. So there's a company, Ben Shapiro advertises it all the time. But you can send them all of your tapes, and they'll convert it all to DVDs, and you can just put it in DVD player, and it'll play right on.
it.
Yep.
Well, I converted that one, some people in Andalusia.
Yep.
I carried it to them. They charged me like $10 just to convert that one to it was like a stick.
Yeah.
And I put it in the computer. And
Digital.
Yeah, which was good, but I got so many of them. Man, I've got cases and cases of them in the shed out there, VHSs.
That's awesome.
I've got the very first race I ever raced in my life. On
Okay.
that
No doubt.
one. Yeah. But so we had them because of that. And so anyway, back to Milton. We raced there in '89, Daddy did. And we finished the year out. We didn't race a whole lot.
Right.
We couldn't go every weekend. We'd just go, sporadically. And so the next year, in '90, I was a senior in high school. For some reason, we started going to Flomaton, and I can't remember. We had some neighbors up the road had built a car, and they was going to Flomaton, and it was closer. And at that time, I think we had went to Southern a couple times in '90, but it had done got where it was a little out of line. They was they were a lot faster than us. They was
Right.
just that. If you went there, you had to you had to be pretty good to win. It just got we were just outmatched. But Flomaton was a little more our style at that time. It was
Right.
a little more guys like us. That just just threw old
Competition
cars
wasn't
together.
as stiff,
It
yeah.
wasn't near stiff,
Right.
and it was a lot closer. And so Flomaton in '90, they started a novice class. My dad was racing hobby. They started a novice class, and it was just pretty much about like the hog class is now.
Yeah.
Knocked the windows out of it.
Put a 4-point cage in it and roll.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yep. And I like my cousin actually he lived down here. He
Mhm.
lived down here. He had moved down here from McKenzie and was working down here somewhere. I can't remember. And he got to be friends with old Robert Nellums
Oh yeah.
up the road here.
Yeah.
And Robert had built him one of those novice cars. Just put a cage in
I
it
bet
for
you
him.
that was a fine hot rod then.
Well, no, we were sitting on pit road to go out on the track. We had to take a hammer and knock the brake lights out because they forgot to knock them out. He sat there and the brake lights was lit up. You know,
That's awesome.
And so,
Hell yeah.
Anyway, so that really, and that was my cousin was Jimbo Cook and Frankie Cook. They were brothers.
Yeah.
And man, they had that car out there and they raced it, and it was just the old car with a cage in it. It had factory motor in it, but they done pretty good. You know, they were swapping out one woman drive it in the heat race, one woman drive it in the feature. And so I said, Daddy, I said, man, I think I'd like to do that, you know. Which now at this point, Daddy had let me start hot lapping his car some,
Okay.
you know.
You got your feet wet at least.
Yeah,
You
and
really
I'd
had to edge it
actually had ran the year before that. I'd actually run a mechanics race.
Okay.
Remember them? They used to
Yeah.
have
Oh, yeah.
them.
Oh yeah.
I'd actually run a mechanics race down at Milton.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like a 10-lap race, and I think I spun out about 15 times in 10 laps.
Right.
Yeah, but I had hot lapped it some, and so you know I'd been in the car and I liked it. You know, I like
Yeah.
racing.
Oh, yeah.
I was ready to do something else and just work on it and watch him. You know.
Right.
And he told me, he said, well, if you want one of them cars, you know, one of them novice cars, he said, that's on you.
Right.
You can build it yourself. That way you appreciate it.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
you'll want
Yeah.
it. So I graduated. I graduated around May, whenever you graduate. I
Yeah.
graduated high school, and I didn't want to go to college or nothing. I just wanted to get a job and build a race car, you know.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So
Sounds
I
like all
took-
the rest of us.
yeah. So man, I took you know how people give you money for graduating?
Right.
I took every dime of it. I'm talking about every penny. And there was a guy in town there in McKenzie. Well, I say town, it's like 2 stores.
Yeah.
You know, you blink, you miss it.
Right.
You go through there. But his name is Jimmy Gorham. He had an old 79 Grand Prix, and it had an old 301 Pontiac.
Oh yeah.
I bought that thing. It was running. I mean, driving it. I gave him maybe $100 for it or something.
Right.
It wasn't much. And me and a couple of my buddies, we took and we put an old cage in that thing in 1 week. You know, we knocked the glass out of it, you know, and gutted that thing. And another cousin of mine, Roy, he kind of went in with me on it.
Yeah.
You know, helped me out with it. And cause his cousins, Frankie and them, was doing it, and of course that made him want to do it. So we put a cage in that thing, and I went to Flomaton with it. It was black. I just put some 57 duct tape silver numbers on it, you know, with the factory motor in it. The 301. Man, we didn't even take the air conditioner compressor off of it.
That's awesome.
It was all still there, you know. We had to borrow a trailer and all just to get it down there because
Right.
my daddy raced. He
Yeah.
was down there racing. He carried his, you know. So
Right.
anyway, I raced it that night and ended up second.
No shit.
I did. I run that thing so hot. I remember it switched off. The checker. It was. Well, I had no gauge in it. You know,
Right,
I didn't
yeah.
know how but it switched off, and I didn't know why. Well, it locked up. It runs so hot. You know, it's spewing
Why
out
is this thing steaming?
Yeah. So I still had a little bit of money left over, and we had an old 350 Chevrolet we took out of a truck. I got that thing and bought a rebuild kit in it, and I bought a rebuild kit and put in that thing, and we painted it,
Yeah.
you know, and all. And this was all in 90, the summer after I graduated. I got a job, and we got, after that night, it probably took us a month or two, you know, to
Get
get
it
all of
going
that
again.
done and
Mm-hmm.
painted it all up. And we went back, and I raced that thing nowhere but Flomaton that year, rest of that season in
Mhm.
90. And I ended up winning, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 races.
No
I ended up
doubt.
doing pretty good
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
it, you know.
Yeah,
and
for your first season, that's real
yeah,
good.
it was.
Yeah.
I remember, I think back, guys that raced in that, I don't even know if y'all know any of these people. Y'all remember anybody that raced at Flomaton? A guy named Plowboy? He had a shop in Pensacola. His daughter actually raced in that class, and there was another lady named Maxine Brooks that raced in it, and
Oh, no.
Chubby Havard. Y'all remember when Chubby Havard? He was promoting Flomaton at the time.
I've heard that. I've heard
Crenshaw
that name.
owned it,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
Chubby was, and his son Brian Havard, he raced in it.
Yep.
It's crazy. I can remember some of them old names,
Oh yeah.
but
Pop, I say Pop. Mr. Crenshaw had it there he had it for 4 or 5 years, I
He
believe.
did.
Right
He had
there.
it and Baker.
Yeah, at the same time.
Yep, same time.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
Huh.
he had both of them.
So,
Conflict of interest, eh?
no.
Well, they run Baker on Friday night. And
Right.
Okay,
You go to
okay.
Fulton,
Yeah,
run
yeah.
Saturday, you get 2 right there.
There you go.
Yeah.
He was double dipping.
And, I mean, Pop was a hustler.
Uh-huh.
Oh, he was.
Sounds like it.
I
he
love
was a
Buddy,
hustler.
man.
Yeah,
He
I
was.
did too. He was a hustler, but he would run, like I said, on Baker on Friday nights, and then turn around and run Flomaton on Saturdays.
I guess that was a real good way to get the tracks to work together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on both of them. Yeah, absolutely. Got the monopoly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that was in 90. Well, like over the winter, Milton was really going right then.
Yeah, it was blowing. Barney and
Yeah.
Cleo Heath down there, they were doing a good job.
Yeah, and I wanted to go back there and race,
Mm-hmm.
and so we took and added to the roll cage, and got me some wheels and stuff. And my dad kind of sit back at this point. He didn't, I'd got some of the stuff off his car, got his motor and stuff. He said, I'll let you try it in hobby for a while with this car. And then if I want to race, we will. So he kind of did like I had to do with my boy.
Yeah.
We didn't have, it was just one little old shop. One car had to sit outside. It wasn't but one place to work on. One car was about all we needed,
Right.
Yeah.
and he took a back seat for me,
Mm-hmm.
so I could do it. And so I converted it. We started running hobby, and this was in 91. And I run Flomaton some still. We'd go to Baker some, but Milton was where we mainly run at in 91. And I couldn't hardly do nothing. It was just, they were so fast down there. If you could win a heat race, it was
Oh, yeah,
good.
you're doing something.
Yeah,
I mean, that was in the heyday. The 91, 92, 93, 94, that little era of that class, I mean, it was huge.
Yeah, it was, man. And so we struggled through 91. I think I might have went to Flomaton and maybe won. I might have won one race that year. If I can't remember really, it wasn't. I guess it's probably so bad I don't want to remember really. But hey, I probably was the funnest times I've had.
Oh,
dude.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell y'all something that may sound. I tell this to people all the time, and it may be the craziest thing you ever heard. But winning is the worst thing can happen to you in racing.
Yeah, because it kills the drive.
It just takes the fun. I mean, once
Mhm.
you start winning, I can remember back. Man, I can remember back when you didn't care if the track was sandy, had
Right.
holes in it. You didn't care if it was
No,
clay.
you're just driving the
You
wheels off
didn't-
of it.
You didn't care if it rained. You just wanted to get to the track, man, and see everybody in the race.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
You didn't care where you finished. Man, if you finished and the thing stayed together and didn't run hot,
That's a
you had,
win.
you had,
Yeah.
Mhm.
But then you get to winning, and man,
Right.
that's all you want to do.
Right.
Mhm.
You get thinking about that, and you want everything to be perfect so you can win.
Right.
Right.
So
Okay.
it sucks the fun out of it. It takes the actual passion out.
Right.
And
it puts the work in.
It does.
Makes it a job.
Yeah, it makes it
It's
a
kind of
job.
like
It's
a
not
dog.
fun, it's a job
First
at that
taste of
time.
blood,
Right. Yep.
Mhm.
That's what happened. But
Yep.
used to it, man. We were going racing. That's all that mattered. I don't care. Just if the car wouldn't run, let's just go to the track, haul it there.
Right.
I just want to be around everybody at the racetrack.
Right.
That's where
Now
that's where your family was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you want everything to be just perfect.
That's
you
right.
know, Which
Yeah.
some of that's kind of came back. That part of enjoyment for me now with Dale because I can see how much he likes it. And it kind of of course he wants to win like anybody, but he's not near as serious about it as I was when
Right.
when I was really really wanting to do good at it and all. He really likes it, but we can kind of have more fun with it now. Just
Mhm.
because it's kind of back like it was in a way
Right.
for me.
Mhm.
It ain't all the pressure of let's get to the track and make sure everything. I got to do this and got to be there. If I don't got this just right.
Right.
It's kind of fun for me now because I just throw something at the old car, and
Yeah.
if it don't work, I just blame it on his bad driving. But,
Got a scapegoat.
yeah, but anyhow, we let's see, where was we at? What years were we in? When I jumped off on that rabbit.
I think up to 92.
Okay, in 93, I remember I'd got another job. I'd got working with my dad at the box factory.
Mm-hmm.
And I started making, a lot better money. And I remember I actually bought a pretty good motor. We built a pretty good motor, and I bought a decent carburetor and And let's see, that was 90. Yeah, that was 93. Yes, I think so. Was that where we're at, 93?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in 93. Okay. Or was it 92? Anyway, so I got a little faster and the car got doing a little better. Well, I went to Baker one night on Friday night just to watch.
Mhm.
And this was at the time where Mr. Jimmy Dunaway was like the car to beat in hobby, you know. And he was there at Baker on that Friday night. And I walked up to him and we've been talking to him. I'd talked to him some at Milton prior, years. And we was talking there and there was this little blonde-headed girl there, in the pits.
Uh-huh.
And she kind of got my attention, a little bit. Well, that was his daughter, and we sparked a little bit, that's what the old folks say.
Yeah.
A little spark there. Well, at the race, at the racetrack, I'd see her, because we was going to Milton, and I got to know him pretty good. Well, next thing you know, we was dating,
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, man. Up to this point, I didn't know what no racing spring was, no racing shop.
Right.
And so I'm going down there and I'm hanging around with him at his shop. I mean, the first time I went down there was on a Sunday afternoon after the races. And he was unloading his car and washing it and cleaning it up. And I'm like, he was taking tires and wheels off of it and everything. I'm like, man, what,
What are you doing?
we don't touch our car till Saturday. We don't even get off the trailer unless something's broke,
Right.
This ain't. So, and man, that car it was like it was a Chevelle frame, shortened, and lightweight tubing. And I said, Mr. Jimmy, what's all that stuff you got hanging on it right there? He said, that's lead, boy. I said, lead? He said, yeah, you ain't got no lead in your car. I said, no.
What's lead?
Yeah, he said, you got a lead poison in that thing, boy, if you want it to hook up.
Right.
And so, man, my eyes opened to a
Right.
whole new light. I seen why I was getting whipped so bad
Right.
Uh-huh.
because it was a whole new game. He said, what rate springs you running? I said, man,
What are you talking about?
yeah. I said, we go to the junkyard and take a crescent wrench and go around and, whichever one we can find the biggest, open that crescent wrench up, the biggest get over. That's what we knock out and put on the right front. He said, oh, no, man, you got to have, you got to have some racing springs and shocks. And I just said, this is all new to me,
Right.
I didn't know nothing about that because my dad, they had raced. They just, whatever's at the junkyard, he didn't know either,
Right.
And so, anyway, and just the maintenance on the car that Mr. Jimmy done was so much different than what we did. Just the going over and everything he told me he did and all, just the way the body was on the car, how it was completely gutted.
Right.
We had a torch and we just cut stuff out, just enough to get a bar. But this thing was, it was just a body hanging on it.
Right.
And so it was so light, just so much better and stuff. I said, man, I don't know if we'll ever be able to run with nothing like this, And everybody had these kind of cars, it was just better than what we had. And so, anyhow, he had a guy that helped him named Harry Allen. And, man, he was a grumpy old dude, but he was a good dude. He's smart, real smart.
Right.
He done most of Mr. Jimmy's setup stuff, and Mr. Jimmy, and Harry would ask me, he said, how much crossweight you got in that thing? I said, what you talking about?
What's a crossweight?
Cross what?
Uh-huh.
Jesus rides with me everywhere.
Yeah, I said, man, I don't
What's
know
a
what you
crossweight?
Yeah, I got aluminum steering wheel now,
Yeah.
but I was happy to have that.
Right. Yeah.
And, but he would take y'all might have seen these. Speedway used to make them. They called them pogo sticks. You ever seen one of them things?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, you have to unhook your shocks, but it goes up. It's I think the actual name for it was called a wheel loader, but we called them pogo sticks. It went up under the rim. No, and you just pried down on it and it had a level, and you got that thing level,
Right.
and it had a gauge on it, and it would read the wheel weight of that tire. You had to do them one at a time, just sitting on the ground.
I'll be damned.
Yeah. And that's what he used. And so I would beg O'Hara, I said, man, I'd sure like for you to work on my car. He said, I done been down that road. Said, you're an Alabamian? Said, all you need to do is worry about them 2 rows of corn and peas you got behind your house. He was down. He was, he was just doing it, picking at me.
Yeah.
But he said, no, he said, you and your dad race. He said, I don't want to get in between that. I said, man, this, my daddy's fine with it. If you'll help me out, he's fine with that. He ain't gonna get mad. He said, I don't want your daddy mad at me. He's a fine fella. So anyway, I finally carried that thing down there to Freeport and at Harry's old shop. And man, he went to putting that old pogo stick under there and he said, oh, this thing's all blah, 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 and man, he went to pulling out some old springs and stuff, and throwing under that car. And he brought out an old fish cooker and a bunch of old lead. And we went to melting them things down. And man, he went to putting lead in the back of that car. I'm like, this thing ain't going to pull off with the lead he's putting in this thing, He said, you ain't going to be able to turn this thing. I'm just warning you. When you get down, you're going to, but he said, then we'll back off then. He was just, real blunt kind of guy. Miss Jimmy was sitting over there just, he was loving it, Yeah. But anyway, Harry set that thing up, man, and I went down to Milton with it the first night, and I couldn't believe how much different that car drove. I won.
Night and day.
I won the feature that night. And the car drove just like a dream. I mean, you couldn't spin it out.
Damn.
And before it was, I'd spin out at least once a night.
Right.
You couldn't keep from spinning out hardly. And it was amazing the difference in the car. And so that was, let's see, I'm back on these years. I'm trying to keep them straight.
Are you looking to transform your property? Do you need a pool removed, land cleared, or expert grading for your next big project? Look no further than More Site Solutions. One thing that makes More Site Solutions different than other companies, when you call, you're not just getting a business, you're getting Jake. That's right, the owner. Jake personally answers your phone call, shows up for every estimate, and never leaves you hanging. No ghosting, no excuses, just honest, reliable service from start to finish. And if you're the DIY type, they have you covered too. More Site Solutions can supply the materials you need to get the job done right. So whether it's a big project or a small one, More Site Solutions is ready to make it happen. Give Jake a call today at 850-332-2827, and let's get to work.
I ended up racing the rest of that year with that car, and the car that Mr. Jimmy had that he won all them races, he was going to sell it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And
the one that had the hung body on it. And
yeah,
the
Monte Carlo.
Okay.
He had won like, I don't know how many. There's a picture somewhere I seen where his daughter Elizabeth shared it a while back. It had him standing by it, and man, he had all these trophies just covering the whole car, and he had won so many races with that car. I mean, he'd raced it a couple of years, it'd been raced, it'd been hammered and raced, but it's still way better than anything I had ever had.
Right.
And so I finally, at the end of that year, I done made an agreement with Uncle Ed. That's what I always called him. That's the guy who owned his stuff, Ed Deals, and that I was going to get it. And man, he sold me that thing for near nothing,
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't much. And I just kept my old car. Well, I got that car and was getting it ready at the house, Mr. Jimmy and Harriet and them putting me a whole new body on it. I carried them old Monte Carlo. They gutted it, put a new body on it. Mr. Jimmy painted it for me. Painted that plum crazy purple. That's what I always run, 'cause that's what my daddy run.
Right.
And Mr. Jimmy painted it for me, and I got that thing home. And then over the winter, I got a letter in the mail from Barney, Southern Raceway, that they were starting a new Super Street class, and I had only run hobby. It was just 1 year, down there at Southern that year. And he said that you got to move up. They starting a Super Street class.
Oh, when the move up happened.
The move up. They took like the top 10, top 20 in points or whatever. And just because I had raced down there a lot, I had got enough points to make the cut, unfortunately. Right. So here I was again, I had a hobby car, and going to have to run Super Street. And I didn't even, I run a 2-barrel for about the whole year.
Right.
That year. And I was kind of outmatched again, because I seen the car that they was building.
Right.
And it was so much better than what I had. And they all built new motors. I still have my same hobby motor because my plans was run hobby.
Right. That's when they started putting letting them put weight jacks in, stuff like that.
Weight jacks, and we went to the EC1 tires.
Yep.
You know,
McCrary tires.
Yep.
Yep.
I forget what all, and it was different hobby then. But needless to say, I was outmatched again. But I won just by fate. You know, I won maybe one feature that year. That had to be 93. Yep, it was 93, and so I kept the car, you know, and then over the winter of 93, I took, and they was letting us cut the floor pans out, you know, and put
sheet metal in.
Yeah.
More like a real race car.
Yeah, mine wasn't like that, but everybody else has already worked. So over the winter, I did that, you know, and bought me a 4-barrel, and I was going to be ready for the next year, you know. And so that's what I did, and I raced it the whole next year in Super Street again, and I got better. I raced, Baker started running this some then. I maybe won a race at Baker some, and then just mainly Baker and Milton.
Mm-hmm.
And I raced at the end of that year, but I was just, you know, frustrated with it because I couldn't, if I won, it was just because somebody broke probably.
Right.
You know, I still didn't. And that car, like I say, it had been run so much, it'd been bent frame, bent, pulled back out on it several times. I bent it. Yeah, it was tired, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd gotten to know Larry Lambeth pretty good
Mm-hmm.
down here. I was going and buying some parts for him. And I'd actually carried that car to Larry, and he had done some work on it for me under the rear end that really helped it. He put some trick crap up under there. You know, we had took some stuff, and I knew then he's pretty smart too. Up to that point, I didn't think there was nobody in the world anymore than Mr. Harry Allen. You know,
right?
But
Larry's the legend.
Yeah, yeah, and so I had bought some stuff from him, you know, and he had done that work on the car, and I told him, I said, I went there one day and I said, I need a car that'll run with these cars. He said, well, you're going to have to get a new car.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he said, that thing you got used up. And he said, it's just, you ain't going to, I know what they running, you know.
Right.
And I said, well, look here. And I'd been saving money, you know, I said, Larry, I want you to build me a car that every trick you know that I want it done to it. I want to build one that's, you know, just the best you can build, frame-wise and all. And I said, we'll buy parts to go on it what we can. And I remember I got a 69 Chevelle frame and carried it to him. And Chris Holmes worked for him at that time. And Chris was really, really good. You know, he was smart too.
Oh, yeah.
And that was over the winter of 94 going into the 95 season. And Larry built that car, and it was a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Man, he done some stuff to that thing. I was looking out for, like, you know, I was burning up every bit of my vacation time at work, going down here working on it, you know, every day I could, helping Chris with it and Larry with it. And it was a really fine car.
Right.
You know, and it was almost too good because Larry at that time had a parts and fuel truck at the track. You know, he was selling fuel and parts down there. Well, he stretched every gray area. He done it. You know, those cars were supposed to have 4 links under them. Mm-hmm. You know, they would allow you Heim ends on them.
But it'd be factory locations and links.
Well, it didn't say that.
Okay.
It just said 4-link suspension, you know. So,
okay.
Yeah, so
that
Larry
leaves a lot up to interpretation.
Larry said, well, I called, he called, you know, but being that he knew Barney real good, and the tech man at the time was a guy named Fred.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby D was a tech man for years down there. Bobby D, I can't remember Bobby D's last name, but he had quit, another guy named Fred. So Larry's interpretation of a 4-link was any kind of link that hooked through the rear end to the chassis. And he asked Barney, and Barney said, yeah, that's what it means. You got to have 4 links. So he just made a 3-link. He said, and put a J-bar on it. He said, you got the 2 lower trailing arms, and you got the center arm, and then you got the J-bar. He said, that's 4 links.
Yeah.
And so I said, I don't think they're going to let me run that. He said, well, they're going to have to tell us we can't.
Right. Yeah. Heck yeah.
You know, so I got that thing. I got it from him, carried it home, and my uncle was building my motors for me at that time. We'd build a new motor and for that car, and Milton had an open practice before season started that year in 95. And I went down into that practice, and he, AFCO had came out with those over the frame headers,
Yep.
you know, and I didn't, nobody had any. I was the first one to get any, because you pretty much had to, you know, they set so high over the frame, you pretty much had to build the car for them.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know,
you had to move
the
the firewall back and everything.
Yeah,
else,
and the motor and all. So he built the car around those headers, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and man, they sounded so good.
Uh-huh.
I think those headers probably made folks not, you know, leery about the car than anything, because just the way it sounded.
Right.
It's so much louder than everybody else's, you know.
Right.
Well, I went down there for that practice, and man, it wasn't good. Larry said his phone rung off the hook all that week, and because it really done good. You know, that thing was humming around, and I was like,
Yeah. He's like, this is what I'm talking about.
yeah, this is the way it's supposed to feel here,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And so, they was waiting on me that next week in tech line. Fred was, when I got there, and I pulled up on the scales, and man, he hammered me. He said, you can't have this right here, and you can't. This thing's got a 3-link under it, you know, and blah blah. I mean, he just so needless. I didn't get to race that night. That first night, I didn't even get to race.
I'll be damned.
Yeah, we had to leave. They wouldn't. They said this thing's so far out the rules, and Barney come around and looked at it, and he jumped on Larry, you know, about it. But Larry said, "Well,
he
Barney
called and got permission."
yeah. So anyway, Onaka was racing up there, you know, and we could run it there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was in their rules what you could do.
Right.
I did have to take and put another link on top. You know, had to put 4. You could have aftermarket trailing arms, but I had to space a date. I actually amended the rules and put a distance on it, I think, where it had to be, you know, so far apart. You couldn't just have 2 right together. They put a distance on the top links.
Right.
You know, so they had to be spread kind of like factory, you know. They could run straight, you know, but they had to be so far apart. So I did that. That wasn't no problem. Just a longer boat, you know, some shims and all. We did that. So we raced about half the season then in at Onaka. And man, I won a ton of races over there. Seemed like I won 16 in a row.
Damn.
Because they was qualifying, you know, and I'd qualify on a pole every week.
Yeah.
And old Cheatham was coming over there, and
Howard Cheatham?
Yeah, and man, he'd scare me to death. That thing he had was so fast and all. But Wally Howard raced a bunch over there back in them days, you know. But so we raced mainly there. Barney had talked to Larry about it and told him what we'd done, and Barney said, just tell him to bring it back. You know, he can race it, you know. Just, you know, we're going to look at it and make sure. And things kind of had, you know, slacked off about it, you know, because I'd been racing up there. And so it's kind of, the heat kind of had left. So we went and just raced in 95. I didn't race, but maybe 3 or 4 races at Milton, you know, and really didn't do that good with it because I done got so used to racing at Onaka.
Right.
You know, the tracks were so different.
Way different.
Yeah, it was just me.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't get acclimated back to Southern. And so we just finished out the year up there at Onaka.
That place, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but that place almost was like drag racing. It
was.
It was like drag racing, stop, turn, and then drag race again. You know?
Yeah, it was. And it had a lot of banking in it.
Yeah.
You know,
a lot of banking.
So we raced there, finished that year out, and then 96, they actually built a track up there in Greenville.
Oh yeah.
You know, the Butler County Motorsports Park.
Yep.
I know that one.
And so in 96, we raced primarily up there, you know, with it.
That's closer to the house too.
Yeah, it was. That was like heaven when they opened that place up. You know, that was the closest, you know, I'm 2 hours pretty much from anywhere, you know, and well, Onaka wasn't bad.
Yeah.
It was close too. So in 96, we raced mainly up there. And, but you know, it wasn't a whole lot of cars there, you know, and it was fun going up there and close to home, but it just, you know, it's like Milton was calling, you know, that's just where I wanted to go because it was, you know, if you raced, you want to go where everybody was at.
Right.
You know, I had a bunch of my friends from down that way was still racing down there and that I'd made, and I just, Onaka had closed at the time. So I think they closed about halfway through 96 or something. Or maybe they closed after 95. Yeah, I don't even think they run in 96, best I can remember. But anyway, so we finished out the year in 96, and then in 97, we decided to go back to Milton.
Mhm.
That's where we were primarily going to race. You know, I wanted to go down there and I wanted to race for points.
Right.
You know,
Try to win the championship.
I did.
Yeah.
You know, wanted to do that, and man, that's when it really got good.
Right.
That's when the days of me and old Ricky.
Yeah.
We that's 97 and 98 is when
Y'all
I
put
really
on some shows
learned a
now,
lot
yeah.
about racing.
Right.
You know, I'd say those were some of the best years of my career because, man, it was just fun to go down there and the you know, Ricky, he already had a strong fan base.
Mhm.
You
We're
know,
talking about Ricky Haugen.
Haugen, yeah.
Just for the listener.
Yeah. And me and him, prior to this, we were real good friends.
Yeah.
You know, I'd go stay at his house,
Yeah.
and he carried me to the first snowball derby I ever been to.
Oh, I'll be
I went with
Okay.
him.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I'd only been to one more. And we were good friends, you know. But I had, you know, been racing, hadn't been around him much, you know, for a while there because I started racing other places there. But in 97, you know, we kind of, there'd been a little bit of blood between us, you know,
Mhm.
prior because I sort of, you know, you hear this and that and the other, whatever, but maybe I blamed him kind of for some of the trouble that I had with racing my car down there,
Right.
the way it was, you know. But anyway, that's here or there. But he, like I say, he had a fan base. He was, you know, he was in that Super Street class. He was
Oh, yeah.
he was one to beat him and
Yeah.
Mr. Jimmy Dunaway,
Yep.
and they were several, Michael Porter, and but Ricky was, you know, he was the one because he was winning all the championships,
Right.
you know. And here I come in, I'm just the old, you know, country boy, you know, from
Right.
Alabama up here in the middle of nowhere, and so he had his fan base and I had mine,
Right.
you know, and we didn't even hardly speak to one another then, but man, we raced each other. Man, we ran each
Rivalry.
other hard. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
you know, back then you, the way the points worked out, you, if you was high in points, you started tail end of the heat races.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and a lot
Yep.
of times me and him would be first or second in points,
Mhm.
you know, so we both started in tail end of the
Had
fast
to come
heat.
through the field. Yeah.
Yeah, man, we put on some races.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we got at it, you know,
Right.
and we raced each other hard, but,
I love that point system. Ricky explained that to
Yeah.
us, and I love that the way they did the points
that was
back then
good.
starting.
Man, it
Yeah,
made good racing.
absolutly.
And starting in the back, you know, that I
It
think
teach
that
you how
helped
to
both
pass,
of us.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did. It really helped
That and it
both of
puts
us.
on a good show.
It
Mhm.
did,
Mhm.
you know. And so, man, I think it was 97. It was either 97 or 98. I can't remember. Me and him went into the last race tied for points down
Oh,
there.
no doubt.
We was tied. Steve Stokes, he used to have a little show he did.
Yep. Yep. Let's talk racing.
Yeah.
Yep.
He interviewed me and Ricky the day of that race together.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess whatever he done on his show or whatever, but he said that we was tied for points. So they went back to see who was going to start on the pole of the championship race.
Right.
And so they went back and see who won how many races. Well, we both had won the same amount of races. He said, so then what they did was they had to see who had many seconds.
Right.
And Ricky had like one or two more second place finishes than I did. And so he got started on the pole. And he whipped me.
Did he really?
He whipped me. Yeah, he won. It was a good race, but
Yeah.
he got out and I couldn't do that with him. I run second to him. He won the points.
I'll
you
be
know.
damn.
You couldn't beat that joker in points.
No.
Now he was consistent.
Yeah.
You know,
Was he
That
all
joke-
right last night?
Yeah, I went right over there and talked to him right after it. Man, he took a wreck.
Yeah, that was a lick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
he-
a bad one.
And you know, he told me that's the first time he'd ever been on his lid.
Really?
Yep.
Well, welcome to the
Race.
club.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. He
Was the car killed or?
it messed it up bad. I don't know how bad, but he told me it really hurt it.
Dang.
They had to go get Uncle Steve went and got a rollback, I think, and I seen him putting
dang.
it on a rollback. It really hurt it. It was a bad wreck. I didn't see it actually happen because I was getting our car ready,
Yeah.
but I looked
Was
at
Mr.
it.
Bobby all right?
I didn't even see him.
Really?
I don't know. You know, Ricky, he wasn't even supposed to be there. He
You're
told
right,
me.
yeah.
He was supposed to have been in Volusia, but it rained, and he
Right.
went there at the last minute. He said, I wasn't even supposed to be here. I was glad he was okay.
Yeah.
Hey, that
It
was a
looked like
bad wreck.
Yeah, it did. It looked bad. Just for listeners, we were talking about Ricky Haugen. Had a rollover wreck last night at Tri County on the front straightaway. It was pretty nasty.
It was.
Yeah.
I seen a video of it, and man, I'm glad he's okay.
Absolutely.
It was he took a lot of tumbles,
Yeah.
on that thing.
Yeah, rolled
I
5
told
or
him, I
6
said,
times.
man, we too old for you to be wrecking like that.
Yeah,
Should
no
have
doubt.
done that back in the younger days.
That's right. Yeah. No doubt. Part of being a hometown hero is looking good at the racetrack. Whether it be a wrap, T-shirts, hats, a fire suit, or trailer curtains, HP Graphics can get the job done for you. They have been on my race car for many years and have done an incredible job. TJ Paul is great to work with. Give him a call today at 601-946-3645. Well, so coming on up through the Super Street days and after that, y'all got into like a limited late model kind of after that.
Yeah. I think
like the old style clip cars and stuff, wasn't it?
yeah, they right along 90, I think 90, 98, we run Super Street. And I think around 90, 98, 99, right along in there, they let us start running clip cars, And so I raced a year with my car, which man, I'll be honest with you, Larry and Chris done such a good job on that car. It was way ahead of its time.
Right.
I mean, that thing, the way he had cut and moved the frame, Larry was a big late model guy. He had them. And so I remember building that car, being there with them. They was a TNT late model chassis sitting right beside mine.
Yep.
And they go over there and get measurements off of it and go over there, and that's, we built my car kind of, off the scale of that thing.
Right.
And so it was way ahead of its time. It was probably a better car than driver I ever was, you know. And so even though they went to that clip class, my car was still okay.
Right. Still competitive.
It still was, And it was, of course, it was built to be a 3-link, so they went to 3 links in them. So I was right at home then,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And but anyway, I wanted a clip car, and cause Mr. Jimmy Dunaway, we still friends, Of course, me and Elizabeth had went our ways by then, and I had gotten married, and he had went to Vic Dolehide over in Brandon, Mississippi.
Yep.
He had got a clip car built from Vic, and so I looked at that thing, man. It was nice, and it was fast.
Oh yeah.
Ricky
hauled ass back then.
Yeah, Ricky had got one, and Michael Porter had a good car, and so I talked to Miss Jimmy about that. He said, "Man," he said, "Oh, Vic's a good guy. You need to talk to him. He'll do you right."
Mm-hmm.
And so I got his number, and I called old Vic and talked to him about it, and he just said, "Come over here, and we'll just talk about it." And so I made a trip to Brandon, Mississippi one night, and before I left there, we had me a car in the works.
Right.
And that was over the winter from 99 to 2000.
Okay.
And so he built me a car, and I put it all together over the winter, and came out with it in 2000 and started racing that clip car. And man, it was good.
Oh yeah.
That was a fine car. It was fast. And I raced it at 2001, 2001, and then 2002. I raced it at just Milton. That's about the only place we went. That's pretty much the only place had them,
Right.
And we won a lot of races with that car. It was good.
You say a clip car, is that kind of like a modified?
No. It's a late model chassis, but it's got just where the suspension bolts in, like the uppers and stuff like that. It's like got a piece of a clip on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it had to have 40 inches or something.
Yeah, something
like that. And the rest of it was just 2x3
Okay.
tubing.
Right.
It looks.
So what those cars ended up being later on after this, do you remember the original hobby class, like that we would know it? Now, not their hobby class, but in our era, the hobby class.
Yeah.
So those cars, the Alan Collies and the Michael Rhodes and Michael Porter and him and this, whatever, that's what those cars were.
Okay.
Those were clip cars. They were like limited late models, but that's what ended up being the hobby class.
Okay.
And then it went away, and then, Cruiser come in and street stocks and stuff like that. The order of cars changed around after they killed the hobby class, but that's what those cars were.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
See a lot of them old
they
things.
Were bad fast though.
I've seen a lot of them old things with Marketplace and stuff.
Yeah.
People sell them and can't really do much with them these days.
Yeah, I don't know nowhere that's running them type
There
cars.
was a class. Matter of fact, me and Haugen talked about it. There was a class at Phoenix City that you could still run them right after they killed them around here. You could still run them at Phoenix City, and there was like like not a cruiser class, or maybe it was called the cruiser class or something like that up there, and you could still run a 3-link hobby car. But today, I mean, they're all gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know if it's all full jig belt late models now, I guess.
Yeah,
and
pretty
then,
much.
Yeah.
Even the street stock cars, of today, I mean, they're all going with Johnson chassis and Johnson clips and stuff like that, and they're not what,
It's a late model 8-inch tires.
right. I mean, pretty much.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, even in that class, we got away from 3-links, and you could actually run before they went to a full late model chassis. You could actually run 4-links under them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But they had quick changes in them and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff right there before the end.
yeah.
The class really, and I was 12, 13 years old when that was going on. But I mean, really and truly, the class got out of hand.
It did.
You know what I mean? And once it got out of hand, there was only,
It died.
there was only 3 or 4 drivers that could actually win. You know what I mean? And everybody else was just field fillers. And then it started dying off. And
Mhm.
That's the thing. If you only got 2 cars that can win over and over years, and everybody's going to get discouraged and move something else.
well, and I think what ended up happening is when Jimmy Goodwin come up with the late model, the crate class or whatever, the crate late model kind of phased those cars out because they just, it was cheaper to buy a crate motor and go crate racing than it was to try to keep one of them hobby. Because them hobby motors back then, they were stout.
Yeah.
I mean, they had aluminum heads at the end, roller camshafts. I mean, it was like a full deal.
Like a modified motor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but when did so after those clip cars, is that when you got into late model racing?
No, they actually, best I remember, they went to a full jig. Like, I think they kept the motor rules the same, and but you could run just it was easy because what people were doing was buying. I had a car built,
Right.
but what a lot of people were doing were buying old wrecked late models.
Yep.
And just welding that piece of clip on the front.
Yeah, just scabbing it on there.
Yeah, and scabbing. So they said, well, a lot of people wanted them just to go to a late model frame.
Right.
Be easier.
Right.
And it did make more sense.
Right.
Well, I just had this car built, and just run it, and I didn't, I just had, Dale just been born,
Yeah.
and I wasn't about to build another car,
Right.
and so I just put a for sale sign on it toward the end of the year, in 2002, and actually went to Phoenix City with it and raced the national with it.
Yep.
And I won a heat race up there, and it put me on the pole for the feature, the National 100 Super Street feature.
Right.
And a guy, y'all remember James Ushery?
Yeah.
He raced around. Well, he had a guy named Jeff Shores that, sponsored him, helped him out. Well, he came up to me and wanted to know what I wanted for the race car, and I just threw out a number, that I didn't think he'd give me. He wanted it race ready.
Right. There.
And that joker, it wasn't just a few minutes. He'd come back and he said, I got a check right here. I'll write you for that amount. He said, but there's only one condition. You can't race it.
And you're sitting on the pole of the National
I'm
100.
on the pole, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's a heck of a decision.
This was on that Sunday morning. We'd run the heat races that Saturday night.
Right.
This was that Sunday morning.
Right.
And my dad was there, and old Vic, he was there. He
That's
was
a
like,
tough decision.
Yeah, Vic was like, don't set it, don't do that. Just they'll still buy it. Race it. He wanted me to win, get that race that. I said, man, if I wreck and tear that thing up,
They ain't gonna buy it.
Yeah, I said, I'm done racing,
Right.
this. I ain't gonna buy another car.
Right.
I can't do this no more. I got family and stuff, I said, I can't race late model. I ain't gonna buy a late model frame, and
Right.
they was going to, those cars had, we run just 5-on-5 wheels and stuff.
Right.
They was going to quick change rear ends and wide fives and
Right.
all that. It wasn't just the frame. It was
Right.
like, man, you're going to have another car do
Oh
this.
yeah. It was.
It
was good.
I wasn't going to do it. I
Right.
couldn't afford to. And so I sold that sucker. I loaded up in the trailer and we went home with it. And they come got it. I washed it that next Monday afternoon when I got off work, and they was there and they picked it up. And I was done with dirt. I
Right.
sold them my spare everything, for dirt. I didn't have any dirt stuff left. And so, but during that time, a guy that I knew from Georgiana up the road there, he had me and him had kind of went together on a asphalt modified.
Yeah.
And I had raced it some over at Kinston off and on during that time, but he just wanted a race car just to have a race car.
Right.
he didn't want to race it that much. So, we didn't. I knew that wasn't going to pan out because he had done got it and carried it home, and was keeping it, and just didn't want to race that much. So
wanted to sit there and polish on it.
Yeah, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I wanted to race, but I didn't really know what.
Right.
And so I had took and kind of go back a little bit. That last year I'd run dirt. I had picked up a sponsor from a guy named Doug Webster.
Mm-hmm.
He owned a construction company called Signature Construction.
Okay, yeah.
He was, and there's another guy named Mr. Paul Stevens.
Mm-hmm.
They were all good friends. It goes back to my connection with Mr. Jimmy in Freeport down there. All them years I got to know Mr. Paul, because he was good friends with Mr. Jimmy and all of them, and we just all was real close, And Mr. Doug had built a house for Mr. Paul, and Mr. Doug had raced previously years ago, way back in his younger days, and so he just came up to me one night and said, "I want your name, on my car, on your car. I want to put Signature Construction on your car." So I did, and it was on, that last car I had, last dirt car. And anyway, so after we sold that car and all, I just over the winter, I was like, man, I want to race something, And I had this money, saved up, and I had raced some asphalt modified. And Daddy was like, if you want to race, just get an asphalt modified. It's right here at the house, and you just race that. And so I forget the name. There used to be a website that was in Florida. It was mainly Florida stuff that sold all down in South Florida and everything. I was on the computer at work one day, and I was just looking through race cars, and I found y'all remember Ellis chassis?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I found one on there a guy had, and there used to be a guy that come up here when I run that asphalt modified for a guy over there. There's a guy came from around Tampa or St. Petersburg, I think where he's from, named Dwayne Dempsey. Y'all ever remember him?
I have heard that name, yeah.
And man, he was bad.
Yeah,
I'm talking about he was.
Bone.
Well, he had a car, and when I'd raced over there, I could tell his car was just. I liked the way it looked. It looked different than everybody else. It had the little rounded roofs, and the glass. When I raced over there at Kinston, I was just old dirt looking bodies, and going back to that, I just thought about this, but we used to go over there and race, which I drove a car for a guy. I done left this whole part out. I actually had got another Super Street car around 96. And I had got it with a guy named Don Durrell from Greenville. Me and him kind of went together on it. Right. This old chicken house car. Y'all remember that old car? Chris O'Connor had it one time. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had racing it. I had two. Well, me and that guy was together on that car. And then I had my car still.
Okay.
But we raced it mainly at Greenville in 96. I didn't hardly run my Super Street car much in 96, but I forgot all about that. I'm getting old. But anyway, we'd kind of quit. He had bought a modified, or IMCA modified.
Right.
And man, we'd run that thing on asphalt. You remember when they done that at Kinston?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Me and Jesse would race.
Yeah, Jesse Barnhill and Scooter and Todd. And
we'd run them things at Kinston and leave there and go jump in the feature at Milton.
Yes.
Because running for those points.
Yep.
Those IMCA points.
Curtis was doing that.
Yes.
Everybody was doing that.
Yeah, Curtis. Well, I forgot all about that stuff, but I had run some modified with him, that guy, we had the 4-link under, we did it all, just run it, But anyway, so I was looking at this car on the internet, and it had that whole shot engineering on it. And I know those cars were fast from Dwayne Dempsey racing up there, and so I called the guy on the phone, was talking to him about it and everything, and we made a deal on it. And man, I went down there and I bought that thing race ready, motor and all, for near nothing. I mean, he sold it to me just really cheap. He was in a bind, needing the money. And so this was over the winter of going into the 2003 season, so I get the car home and I put sides and stuff on it and get it lettered and everything. But the motor and all that run good. I left it just like it was.
Right.
And so that's what I was going to do for 03, race asphalt. And so I went over there to the Rattler. And I remember I had talked to Curtis a lot back when I drove Curtis Galbert. Yeah. He raced a lot of asphalt.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd helped me a lot over there with that other old car I had. And I got over there and he made fun of that other old car I had. He said, this thing right here, Curtis thought, he real high pitched. He said, this thing right here, you need to get rid of it. But I went over there and I unloaded that thing, and Curtis come over there and he put them old hands on his hips. I won't ever forget it. And he said, you done got your race car now, ain't you?
Yeah.
And that was for the Rattler.
Yeah.
That was the first race of the year, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't made a lap in the car yet, you know. When, man, I get out there in that thing, and all the times I'd race asphalt, you know, it was, you know, the old dirt just want to come out in you know.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'd won a few, but it still, you know, everybody made fun of me.
Right.
You want to lean on that right rear.
Yeah. But, man, this thing here was just sucked to the track.
Mm.
You know, I went around there, it'd break your neck when you go in the corner, you know. And, man, I won that Rattler. It wasn't even funny, you know.
You won the Rattlesnake?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And it modified that year. Yeah.
Dang.
I won a few of them in that Cup Light, several of them.
Yeah, I knew that.
thing.
I didn't realize that. That's cool.
But there's probably part of this story y'all didn't know I'm getting to. Most folks don't know, but I got a tape. I can prove it.
Okay.
And so I raced several races at Kinston, you know, with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Five Flags was running on Friday nights.
Right, yeah.
You know, so I had went down there with a guy that raced at Kinston with us. He lived in Andalusia, and with him, race modified, you know, some. I went with him just to hang out with him, help him.
Yeah.
So I said, man, I'm going to bring my car down here, you know, and get some of this right here. So
some of the big track.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have but 4 wheels, you know. I got what wheels come on it. And Kinston, we had, we run on like a groove tire.
Yeah.
You know, well, Pensacola down there, you had slicks.
Yep.
You know, the Hoosier slicks. So I get down there.
Yeah.
And I had to take the tires, the wheels, jack it up and take the wheels off and go over there and buy 4 tires, you know.
Right.
And so this is my first trip ever racing at Five Flags, you know. And I buy them and I put them things on there and we go out there and practice in the daytime, you know.
Right.
And man, I'm out there and I'm flying, you know. This is before they took the granite, you know, and done all that. And this thing, you know, them rocks is like, you know, they're like razor blades sticking up, you know, and in the daytime out there, I'm clueless, you know. At Kinston, we go out there and practice and go back, you know, run the same tires, no big deal, you know.
Right.
You burn the tires off and say.
I ain't have a clue. I'm an idiot. You know? And so I don't forget how they started the races. We didn't qualify, I don't think. We might have did. I don't remember. But I do remember when it got feature time and we took off, I was like I was on ice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I'm
just hanging on. And old Sammy McMullen, I think that was his name. He was the one to beat back then.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was in his way bad. I'm just hanging on. We come down the front straightaway, and he done give me 2 or 3 shots. You know the old story. The first shot, it means I'm here.
Yeah.
The second means get out of the way, and the third one, you gone.
Right.
Yeah.
I got to the third one. Down the front straightaway. He give it to me.
Sammy told us he had 3 strike roll.
Yeah, he give me the third one, and I needed it because I was in his way, and man, I spun that thing around and hit the left front and the wall there, you know.
Yeah.
And I was so discouraged because the car had been so good at Kinston and all, you know, and I didn't know. I just thought I was that bad at Five Flags.
You were dealing with a whole nother animal.
Yeah, exactly. The thing was the tires. I just killed them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I learned that. You know, my buddy, I was going with him, but he was just bad as I was. We found out why he was, you know, going out there killing your tires and hot laps.
Right.
So it took me a little while, but I saved some money up and I went back, you know, and I got me a set of wheels.
Right.
And I practiced on some old tires, and I put new set on for the feature, and man, it was gone. I did do one thing though. Y'all remember Gary Nix?
Yeah, yeah.
I
absolutely.
did. I ran slap through over that joker. I did. I won't ever forget it. I got it on video.
No, you really?
I did, man. I was running third or second, and well, I think I got the second, and he was leading, and man, my car was good.
Yeah.
You know, I was getting it on.
Yeah.
And went in the corner, and he just wiggled a little bit, and he slowed down before I could slow down, and man, I squared him right up. And when I hit him, he went dead right. Bam! He hit that wall. And I remembered, you know, I put a lot of my faith and trust in the Lord. That's the only way I could do anything.
Right.
And he had Jesus first on his car. And I'm thinking, oh, Lord, you know, I hope this fella believes like I believe he going to kill me, you know. Because, I mean, I wrecked him.
Yeah.
And but anyway, I went on and won the race, man. It was
You won a race at
I won a
Pensacola?
Five Flags
No
Speedway. A lot of folks don't know that.
I didn't know
a modified race, yeah.
Wow, okay.
Hell yeah.
They did a videotape of it. You can buy it.
Right.
And I remember, I can remember these words exact when the announcer was saying, whenever I run in there and I hit Gary Nix, the announcer, whoever was doing the announcing, he said, holy carboli. I could just remember that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I hit him a ton,
Yeah.
squared him up, and he wrecked, you know. But, yeah, I won that race, and that was on Friday night. And then the next Saturday night, I went to Kinston and raced. And when I was there at Kinston, you heard me talk about Mr. Paul Stevens.
Yep.
This was in 03.
Mm-hmm.
He was there. He come walking up to me when he was there, and he said, you know, we talked about how you been doing. I hadn't seen him hardly any, because this was on into probably May or June, July, somewhere along in there. You know, I ain't even been to the dirt track.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, man, we sure miss y'all, you and your family and all being down there at the races. You know, a lot of people, you know, are saying, you know, we just miss y'all being there and stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. I said, I miss it too, but it's, you know, I'm enjoying this. My daddy likes it over here. It's close to home. He said, yeah. And we just him hauled around a little bit, you know, about it. And he went on. I didn't think nothing else about anything, you know.
Right.
Well, about 2 weeks later, he called me. He said, hey. I said, hey, Mr. Paul, what's going on? He said, Doug Webster,
yeah.
He said, we bought a late model race car and you going to drive it.
No doubt.
That's just what he said. He said, I said, sir? He said, yeah. Well, that car I was telling you, Miss Jimmy Dunaway bought.
Yeah.
Well, they bought it. Miss Jimmy was getting out, you know, racing, and they bought it from him, and they carried it over at old Vic.
Yeah.
And actually, I carried it when you know, because he didn't give me no choice. He said, you're gonna race for us. You're going to drive. And so.
Kind of hard to say no to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to get back on dirt. I mean, I love the asphalt, but, you know, I'm a dirt, you know.
Right.
I just, you know, I like them both. I still race, you know, either one today, but, you know, dirt is just where that's where all most of my friends were and stuff, you know. And.
Winter is over. Racing season is in full bloom, and hurricane season is only weeks away. Don't wait till Jim Cantori shows up on Pensacola Beach to make sure that your house is hurricane ready. You need to give Window World of Pensacola a call. We specialize in impact and non-impact rated windows, but our impact line is what you need for the upcoming hurricane season. Give us a call today at 850-484-9998 or come by the office at 10108 North Palafox Street.
So I was like, yeah, I'm in, you know, I'll buy that thing. So we carried that thing over there to Vic, and he cut that front clip off and put wide 5 hubs, spindles, and all that stuff on it, you know, and made it a full jig car then, you know. And so that was in 03, and we raced the rest of that year with that car, and I didn't win a race with that thing. It was a full frame jig car then, you know. It was just one of those limited cars with the front snout cut off, basically. But it just was, it was ill, you know. It was,
Wasn't right, yeah.
And Mr. Paul had a guy, that was a friend of his from Michigan named Beef, and he was building the motors back then, and they wasn't very good motors, you know, not like what everybody else had and stuff.
Right.
They was okay, but they wasn't what everybody else was running. So I didn't do real good. And Mr. Doug come up to me, and he said, you want to stick with this racing pretty good? I said, yeah. He said, well, we ain't doing it the right way. He said, we need to be doing this a better way.
Right.
And he said, we got to get us a better motor and a better car. And at that time, Rocket was the thing to get. He said, what kind of car would you like to have? I said, I'd like to have a Rocket. And he said, well, what kind of motor would you like to have? And I had, to back up a little bit, I had raced one of those Gulf Coast races that Jimmy had when they was open. I think it's the one Ricky talked about he won on the show.
So. Mm-hmm.
Well, I had drove a guy's car in it from Highland Home up there named Brandon Register.
Yeah.
He had old GRT, and Jay Dickens had built the motor in that thing. And, man, I ain't never stepped on nothing like that.
Uh-huh.
That thing was way more than I could deal with, you know, at Clomerton too. You know, I think I ended up running third in that race, though, in that car or whatever. But they just wouldn't know nothing like that motor, you know. And he said, well, who would you like to build a motor? I said, well, if I just had a choice of motor, I'd like Jay Dickens to build one.
Uh-huh.
And I'm thinking this
Good
ain't
choice.
going nowhere.
Yeah.
You know, this ain't. He just
we just fictitiously spent
we
just spent $70,000 right there, you know, at the time.
But he
dreaming right now.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so anyway, that was at the track one night. So he he came to me and he said, he actually came to the house one day and he said, look, he said, let's find a car somewhere. You know, he said, let's find a car first and then we'll talk about a motor.
Yeah.
You know, and I said, you want to buy? He said, yeah, we're going to sell this thing we got. He said, Paul done found somebody who wants it. He said, you know, and they did. A guy came to the house and bought it. And so I went looking for cars. Well, I'd gotten to know Rodney Wing a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Because he had come to Milton, man, at that time, and he would kill everybody in the Derrick Henley races, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He was good. He'd set the track records, you know, and so, and him or Bolin, you know, Mike Bolin, you know.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, so I'd call Rodney. He had a rocket for sale. And so we ended up buying it. We bought that up, my first full, fledged late model. And Mr. Doug, he had called Jay and got Jay to build us a motor. And I'm like, man, I ain't believing this is happening.
we going racing.
Yeah. And we was running steel-headed motors then.
Yeah.
It wasn't even open motors. It was just steel-headed motors.
Yeah.
And so I bought the car over the winter from Rodney. I actually, we went ahead and got the motor and the car. Actually, if I remember right, this was in 04. It was at the end of 03, going into 04, I think. We actually, we got the car, and I run it with the body that was on it. It was a 02 rocket, best I remember, 03. I can't remember.
That was a brand new car, yeah.
Yeah, it was fine still. We actually just peeled Rodney's numbers off and put mine on for that Southern 100 race I used to have. It was we run the steel-headed motor in it, you know, and I run about mid-pack or something, but man, that thing would run. I said, they're going to be in trouble if we go back to running limited, you know, and we did. We started out that year and limited late model, and let's see, we run, I'm trying to think how long we raced limited. We run for a few years there, it seems like, in limited with those steel-headed motors, you know, and full-fledged late model cars.
Yep.
We run those for a few years, and we'd run at Milton and Flomaton. Jimmy would have a few races, you know, for us. And we were actually, Southern back then, their top class was that limited.
Yeah, it was like a steel-headed motor with you could run a roller camshaft and full roller rockers and all that kind of. Yeah, I
think that's right. I can't hardly remember, but they would have late models there like once a month,
right? You
know, so we started running with them, you know, and I actually won a few of them races with my limited car, you know, and so that went for a couple of years doing that. And then they just went full-blown late model again. Yeah. And so then Mr. Doug, you know, he's getting pretty serious with it now, you know.
Right.
And so he said, we're going to have to get a late model motor, you know. And so that's when we got into the spec stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and then let's see, I forget what year. I think it was 06 maybe. Bolin had started building cars.
Yeah.
I still had the Rocket.
Yep.
He had the Track Stars. And we had actually, in 06, we had bought a Masterbuilt.
Okay.
Through Jay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And
we'd got it and had picked up a few races at Milton with it mainly, you know, and I think I'd won a Mississippi State race at Loxley with it over there, and we run some of those super shows. And it was a good car. I'd sold the crate stuff had started.
Yeah.
And we'd put a crate motor in that old Rocket and sold it.
Right.
You know, that car's still around.
Really?
Yeah, last year I worked on that thing a lot for David Windham, the Florida Flash.
No doubt.
Wow.
Yeah, that car he run, that was it.
No doubt.
That was the old Rocket I bought from Rodney.
Huh.
I'll be damned.
And now some other guy has got it. Yeah, David sold it.
That's a, what do they call those cars up there at Tri-County? It's a
Iron Horse.
Iron Horse, that's right.
Yep. And some other guy got it. He run that thing a few weeks ago, but he ain't been back.
You know, I love hearing how cars move around. Especially ones that's been around a while and they bounce around a lot. And I think it's cool to watch them move around.
You know, that thing still wasn't in bad shape when I worked on it.
Really?
It's still, because the guy that bought it from us, he didn't race it hardly any, you know, and it was still, when David brought that thing to the house, I was shocked at how good a shape it's still in.
Did you know it was that car when he brought it? Or
Yeah, I knew it. Okay. Yeah, I'd kept up with it. Actually, those people that bought it was they were from the Funiac over there. Martin Tucker, I don't know, they was farmers.
Okay, I don't know.
They had used to race a 37 hobby car, you know, around. But they bought it and they didn't run it but just a handful of times. And then actually, little Jimmy Dunaway,
okay,
he had bought it, and then he had sold it to the Flash.
Okay.
And so I knew where it was at, and David got it and called me, to got it, and he wasn't long after he raced at the time until he said, "You got to help me with this thing," and so he would try to tote the tire. It had a lot of stuff still on it that I run,
Right.
back, and so we worked on it, got it pretty good. He won a few races in it, and the old car's still around, but then we run that Masterbuilt, and Mike had built them cars, them track stars, and my buddy of mine, Stephen Brantley, had got one.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't, that Masterbuilt was a real, real good car, but I just never felt comfortable in it.
Right.
Now, when we put a crate motor in it, that thing was good.
Right.
I mean, I really liked it with the crate motor in it, but I just never did with those spec motors in it. And I was friends with Chris Wall then. He was helping me with it and stuff, but I just, he was in Masterbuilts, and I just never felt, even though I'd won some races in it and stuff, I just never really, liked it. Yeah, I just never could. And but now when we put the crate motor in it, it was one of the best driving crate cars I've ever had.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I told Mr. Doug, I said, I'd like to try one of them track stars, and I like the way they look at somebody close to home, and Mike, I'd been talking to him, and
they're good people down there too.
Yeah.
Him and Jamie both, man. They're just they've always taken care of us. I mean, they're just good people.
Good people. And so we got one, and Mr. Doug, we got it, and we won a few races in it, and I liked it. It was comfortable, and he said, we're gonna sell that Masterbuilt and get another one.
Mm-hmm.
We need 2 cars. He said, we need a crate car, because the crate was really taking off.
Yeah.
He said, and a supercar, and they both need to be the same thing.
Right,
that way we got all the same parts.
Right.
So we got another one. So then I had a crate car and a supercar.
Yeah.
That was right along in 07,
Yep.
06, 07. We actually sold that Masterbuilt to Calvin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Calvin got it.
Okay.
He was good in it.
Yeah.
He won it, and I don't know where it. I think Clint, the cat daddy, might have ended up with that thing at one time.
Yeah.
But anyway, we went on, and we had 2 track stars then, and went to racing. Just pretty much going everywhere then with those things.
So that was about the era, and this is just for the kids that was growing up in that area or era around Southern. Is that about the time that you started putting the Spider on the?
It was.
What? So tell me what that story is. Where did the Spider come from?
Well, I actually had it on the Rocket too.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. A friend of mine, Tim Wood, he did all my graphics back then.
Yeah.
He did. It was vinyl, because there wasn't no wraps. Well, I told him, I said, we were sitting at his computer one day, and this is just how simple it went. We were sitting at his computer one day just going over stuff. I said, man, I want something all the way across the hood. I want the whole front end covered with something.
Right.
Because I said it gets beat up, and all. I want something just, that
kind of
takes away from that. Yeah. And he was just clicking through fonts, on there, and there's a big spider web popped up. He said, what about that? I said, a big spider web on the front of the car? He said, yeah. I said, can you do that? He said, well, what do you think? Yeah, Big Tim, I said, yeah, let's do that. Let's try it. So, man, he had to make that thing in like 5 pieces.
Yeah.
Because, with vinyl, his cutter, we had to, that thing was like a puzzle when he showed up with it.
Line it all up.
And we put it on there. That was it. Simple as that. There wasn't nothing else out behind it other than that.
Man, that's
and it
too
took
funny.
off. The kids liked it.
Oh,
then,
yeah.
I went,
You played into it.
I did.
Your fire suit. Yeah,
I went the whole
thing.
Yeah,
You're
Dale,
Spider-Man there for a while.
Yeah. Man, that's the big thing. The kids liked it,
Yeah.
and so.
Well, there you go, kids. That's where it came from.
Yeah, well, ain't nothing special about it.
Big deal.
Yeah,
That's funny.
And I figured the McKenzie Missile name was going to come up sooner or later.
Oh,
Yeah.
Let me go and get that out of the way.
All right, let's
Yeah,
go.
let's hear about that.
I never liked that name at all.
Okay.
But I remember one night I had done something to the car, and I told Mr. Doug. Mr. Doug was, he was like my second daddy, and we was really close. Me and Mr. Paul was real close, but me and Mr. Doug just, we hit it off real good. And I used to mess with him all the time. I'd call him like on a Saturday and say, I crunk this thing up in the shop and it blowed a rod out the side of it. And he said, well, put that other bullet we got in it, because we kept, man, he was one that, believed in being prepared. We'd have 2 or 3 of everything.
Right.
And So anyway, I told him, and I hadn't done nothing to the car. I told him I'd put such on it, and I couldn't wait to try it out tonight. And he didn't have but one eye. And he'd look at you kind of sideways, that good eye, and said, "What is it?" I said, "I ain't going to tell you." I said, "I'll tell you after the races." And I swear I ain't done nothing.
All right.
But, man, it's just one of those nights you hit everything just right.
Right.
That thing I took off, and, man, I just skin them up,
Right.
down at Milton.
No, yeah.
And I come in, he was standing there, he was standing there like this with his hand on the hip, and he'd come over there and he said, "I don't know what you done in that thing, but this was a missile." He said, "You was coming off them corners like a missile." He said, "I'm going to call you the McKenzie Missile from now on."
No doubt.
And he started doing that. And one day we showed up at the racetrack, and he come walking up, had something in his hand, and he had went and got some stickers made, McKenzie Missile.
No doubt.
Put them on the car. And so I just kind of blew it off,
Right.
And so anyway, when he, he suddenly died, he had a heart attack and died out of nowhere. I let it stick around for him.
Yeah.
I started putting it on my car, and I would just remember him by,
Right.
because he's the one done that
Right.
night, But like I told y'all earlier, there ain't much missing to it no more. I faded to a bottle rocket, and now I'm from bottle rocket status to those little. I may be, little things that give you the light to fireworks. I may be down to that right now. I'm way down there.
Well, I don't know about that now. I still think you could get the job done. I mean, you a couple years ago, you drove a school bus and a school bus
That's
racing.
what I'm down to. Yeah.
I mean, you did a damn good job.
Oh man, that school bus racing was the bomb. I enjoyed it, man.
So, what was it like driving a school bus around Flompton?
It was just a demolition derby, basically. It was fun, though, man. I enjoyed that.
Right.
I was telling Haugen last night, he said that, all these years he raced, he's never been on his lid. I said, well, I've been on my side twice, is all. And that both of them's in a school bus.
Yeah.
Them
Those
boys,
races wouldn't end until somebody either flipped over or turned one over.
Yeah, it was last man standing.
Yeah.
I thought about walking up in here. I dressed up as Ric Flair one year in that thing. Come in there, I started to come in here. I still got that thing. I started to come in here wearing that. That was some good times now, and for a good cause. But those school buses, man, was fun. We'd run them things around there, and you'd be surprised the abuse they can take. That crazy Michael, he's wild, man. That joker jumped through a motorhome there one night.
I remember that. I was there for that.
Yeah, but they was doing that, and somebody couldn't make it. How that came about, they was doing it, and we was racing there one night, and somebody wasn't going to be able to make it. And Michael called me. He said, "You want to drive a school bus?" I said, "Man, you doggone right. I get one of them things."
I'll race anything.
Yeah. And it was fun.
Too funny. Well, man, you said I don't think you've been reduced down to a sparkler now. But have we seen the end of your driving career?
Pretty much, man. To race, of course, if I was to race anything, it'd probably be a late model, because I don't know if anybody'd let me in anything else, or those cup lights over there. But I will say, those cup lights, race over at Kinston, those things probably the most challenging race cars I've ever drove out of anything.
Really?
Yes, man. Those things are something else now. They're like a miniature late model. Yeah. They got all the adjustments, the late models got.
Really?
Panhard bar, coilovers, and they got a 700cc snowmobile motor in them.
No doubt. Man, those are almost like miniature legacy cars.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, wow. They things are run. Here's the thing: when I first got in one of them, and brakes, they ain't got no brakes. I mean, they got a little old bitty front brakes, are a little old bitty small, like 6-inch rotor, so they don't stop nothing, hardly. Right. And there's only like one on the back, and then you got two on the front, Yeah. But here's the thing with them that got me when I first raced them. You get in them things, they just pin you back going down the straightaways. Well, then when you get to the corner and you ease out the gas, it gets faster.
Really?
Yeah, because that thing has got two clutches on it. It's got a primary and a secondary clutch. And then that run, so you let out of gas, that thing just hauls butt, and so you don't know what to do. It took me forever. And, if you use any brakes much to slow it down, well, they heat up, they're so small, and then in 2 laps, you ain't got anything.
Right.
So, it's
you got to be real sparing on them. Yes.
Oh, wow. And, man, you right on top of the ground, the motor's in there with you, it's 9,000 degrees in that thing.
I bet it is.
With them glasses. And, man, you hauling it.
Well, in anything you're in, if you're a couple inches off the ground, it feels faster, way faster than you're actually going.
Yeah. But man, they are really fast. We carried those things up to Montgomery one time, and state trooper was up there, and he clocked us, man, and we was doing like 120 up there at that track.
Holy wow!
Yes. I mean, they move, and I'm looking down like an inch and a quarter tubing. Yeah. Oh, if you wrecked one up there, I don't know if be anything left of you. Oh, it'd be like a bug on the windshield. We was flying up there.
You might as well just bend over, kiss your butt goodbye.
Yeah.
Oh,
dang.
But anyway, as far as back me racing, man, I don't know. You got to have some dog in you to race, and that dog's about dead in me, really. I guess if I was to probably race some, it might, but I don't know. I just ain't got the interest no more, really. I enjoy what we're doing, and I'll be honest with you, I probably would be completely out of racing right now if here was my plan.
Mm-hmm.
And in 17, at the end of the year, they had the Gulf Coast race. Mike and them did.
Yep.
And I raced it, and I'd been telling Dale, I said, he'd been wanting to race. I'd let him get in my car a couple of times and just go out there, and learn to shift the gears and stuff and all. He was 14 then.
Mm-hmm.
And so I raced that race, and I told him, I said, next year, we'll see about you racing some. I said, I'm getting where I'm, I'm kind of. In 2010, I started the job I have now.
Right.
And I started working. I have to work every other weekend. I still do now.
Mm-hmm.
And it rotates days to nights, And so when you can only race once, twice a month, it's hard to.
Yeah.
You can't. It's hard to do.
Right.
Stay up and be like I wanted to be.
Right.
Competitive. And so I told Dale, I said, I told him prior to that year when we started, I said, you really get into this and help me with this thing. You will race something next year. You can try it. So my plan was, this was what I had planned. After that race, I raced that race, that Gulf Coast race, and I won it. And I said, Lord, I said, I'm thank you, I'm done. I'm gonna let Dale try this some. And I figured, I said, he's gonna get out there and race, 1 or 2 races, and he ain't gonna like this too much, and we can sell out, and it's over. That was my plan. That was
a lot of years ago, man.
That was, so in 2018, over that winter, I bought a 602, put in it, because that's what we was going to do. Well, actually, I was just going to let him race the 604 in it, but then they built Tri-County up here, and they were going to run 602s and 604s.
Right.
So we bought a 602 and put in it for him to race there, and it didn't work out like I had planned.
He got that bug.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm really proud of Dale. He has come a long way from when he started. I remember that 18 season when he started, and it was pretty rough.
It was.
It was rough.
I didn't think he's going to make it.
No, it was rough, but he really has. He's turned into quite a good little driver, and he's come a long way.
You can edit that out. When you get in your car, I don't want him to hear that. I keep him tamed down.
That's right. That's right.
But
make sure he can get his helmet off.
Right. Yeah. But I honestly, I was kind of, I like I said earlier, with him doing that, I kind of found a new life.
Yeah.
A different side of it than, I'd coached him in football.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been that route with him and all and everything. I enjoyed that as much as racing.
Right.
And, but when I seen, him really enjoying it and liking it, it was just a whole new different feel about how I had raced so hard. And I looked at it a different perspective,
Right.
I said, it's back being fun again.
Right.
All the pressure trying to, to race and, not accept nothing but winning. If you run second, just be all mad about it and this, that, to where just going to the track, knowing you weren't going to win, knowing he wasn't going, you just hoped that he went out there and didn't wipe the thing out.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was enjoying it.
Right.
I was enjoying seeing him learn.
The expectations was lower.
Yeah, it was. It brought the fun back to me.
I can't relate to him racing because my son doesn't really care anything about racing. He don't want to do it. That's fine. But I'm a big hunter. And the first time when he shot his first deer, that was more fun than any deer I ever killed in my life, was watching him shoot that one. So, I can't explain the joy I had watching him do that. So I can kind of understand.
Right.
With the racing, I'm sure it'd be about the same experience.
It was.
Yep.
And it's still the same way, now, even though he's getting where he wins a few races, it's still, the pressure ain't there like
Right.
I'd put on myself, you know.
Right.
Because I can still see him enjoying it. You know, there's a lot of times, you know, I leave the racetrack, go home, get a shower, and go to work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but him enjoying it's worth it.
Right.
You know, it ain't worth it to me. So my body says, no, you need to quit this. You know, but you know, it's we having a good time right now. You know, a lot of people ask me, you know, well, did you ever want to go race full time? You know, big races. You know, and I did have the opportunity with Mr. Doug. He wanted to.
Yeah.
You know, he wanted me to quit work and just race. You know, but first of all, I was never good enough to do that. I was never good enough to run with you know, the traveling guys. I wasn't that talent level.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know about
it's
that. I
'cause
mean, you won a lot of races around here. I mean,
it's a lot different though. You get to hitting
Right.
the road. You know, I just I don't know. To me, this was a Saturday morning for me going racing. My grandmother always cooked breakfast.
Yeah.
Ever. Cat head, fat lard biscuits.
Uh-huh.
Y'all know what them? Y'all come along the whop biscuit there. You know, whop on like me.
Yeah.
Really.
Right.
But my granny,
Right.
she made them, you know,
My
lard.
grandparents raised me. So.
Right, okay. Well, you know,
Uh-huh.
y'all know.
Yeah.
Well, she done that every Saturday morning.
Right.
And my uncle and my dad, you know, we'd go up there and we would eat and talk about the races, what we, you know, do that night. And my uncle built my engines for years and years, you know, and he went with us to the
Right.
races. And actually his grandboy's racing now. Y'all know Dougie Halford?
Mhm.
His
Yeah.
Zachary run the slingshot.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's my uncle's grandson.
Okay.
Okay.
Amy, his Zachary's wife, Dougie's wife, Zachary's mom. That's my first cousin, Amy.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
so it's a generations of racing, you know.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
But we'd go up there to my granny's, and even when Dale got, you know, born and all, I'd take him. It's just to walk right up the road. He'd ride my shoulders up there, you know.
Mhm.
And we'd sit around and eat breakfast and talk about it. Then we'd go get the race car ready and go race. And that's what I like.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, that's fun to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Oh,
what
yeah.
I like. I like getting up at home, you know, on Saturday morning and doing that and going racing.
Yep.
You know, and being home that night and being able to go to church on Sunday morning. I just being out on the road, man. Even what little bit we did it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just even now. I mean, we go off to some races with Dale. I catch myself wishing I was at home today.
Right.
You know, I just
It ain't the
I
same.
mean, it's a rough life. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
living in the circus. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It really is going track to track to track. But I mean, I couldn't say that you didn't have the talent level because I mean, I thought I mean, you were one of my
Wow,
heroes
wow.
growing up. I thought you did quite well. With the economy back on the rise and interest rates coming down, if you're looking for a new home in the Panhandle area, give Levada Burrows McIntyre a call with Century 21 BE3. She's been serving the Panhandle, helping buyers and sellers achieve all of their real estate needs. Give her a call at 850-554-2180 or find her on her website at levadasales.com.
Well, I don't know. I mean, another thing is, you know, and you in McKenzie, Alabama, they ain't just, you know, you ain't got a whole pile of friends that can just come over and help you at the
Right.
shop.
Right.
You can gaggle a few of them, go with you to the races, but during the week, you know, it was always, you know, man, I had it.
Yeah.
It was me. My dad was working a lot, and you know, to go off and race. My daddy was not going to go off like that to no race.
Right.
You know, if he couldn't be home,
Mm-hmm.
you had it. You know,
Yeah.
it's yours. He's
Yeah.
going to be home on Saturday night. He ain't going to spend the night in no motel off on the road or racetrack.
Right.
He just wasn't going to do it. And so, you know, that was another thing. We didn't have nobody to really go help, you know, to race a lot of races like that or nothing. And so I don't feel like I owe racing anything. I feel like I done,
Oh yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
you know, I feel
Well,
like I feel like I capped out. I
Mhm.
topped off about what I could do. And
That actually leads me right into my last question that I have for you. And what is the future? You know, I mean, are y'all going to just keep racing with Dale and see
I
where
keep telling him no. I keep telling him because, you know, he's in college right now.
Right.
And he'll be done about this time next year. And I said, once you done that, I said, I'm through. I'm selling everything that's mine, and you can get you a job, and if you want to race, you buy it and you get at it.
Right.
Well, I'm done. I keep telling the guys at CVR that I'm gonna retire in a few years, and I'm gonna be their full-time truck driver.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
and just haul them around everywhere. And I think they're gonna try to hold me to that. I don't really know, honest. I don't really know what we're going to do. We'll probably,
See what the wind blows and where the Lord takes you.
It's easy for me to sit right here and tell you that I could walk away from it, but to actually do it, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a whole other story.
Yeah, it's very hard.
What I would like to happen, if anybody's listening to this, I would like for somebody to buy me out.
Yeah.
Let me work on it, let Dale drive it, and, go that route. So I don't got the financial burden and stuff like that. Something, or either him drive for somebody if he wants to keep racing and I'll help him with it, or even if he doesn't want to race anymore, I don't know what, the career he's going in, he's going to be off working.
Yeah.
He time wise and all, I don't even know if he'll be able to race.
Yeah.
So, I've thought about it a lot and I'm like, I think I can make a decent crew chief, for somebody. And I would like probably do that.
Yeah.
Even if it didn't for Dale, I would like probably just maybe somebody had a car, want me to help them with it. Maybe.
Well, I've always said nobody can quit racing. You can take a break.
Right.
But you can't quit.
It's in you.
You're going to come back somewhere, somehow, some way.
Yeah.
Like your daddy did that time. If we build a car,
fired him back up.
Right.
Yeah. I'd like to stay involved in it that way. But as far as it driving much, I don't got no desire to really. I just, I say that, but if I was to get in it and race a few times, it might be different.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I mean, you ain't hot lapped nothing or.
Well, I actually hot lapped last night and I looked like a fool because the right front caliper was like, Waynard. Y'all know Waynard? Yeah. But I took a tire out. I was thinking, I'm doing this. Yeah, I hot lap every once in a while, cure the itch a little bit.
Yeah, just to scratch it.
Yeah. But that car ours, I need to get in it. I ain't never. The last time I raced it was we went to Phoenix City in 20, and I raced it up there in the 602 class. And Dale had just started,
mm-hmm.
and he run it in the beginner class, and he won, and I won.
Oh,
and that's the only race I've ever raced in that car.
Huh.
It was up there at Phoenix City, yep.
That is cool.
Yep.
Well, Shep, I certainly appreciate y'all coming all the way down from McKenzie to sit down with us and talk. You have actually been, you and Ricky Haugen, I think, have been the most requested people.
Is that right?
To be on this podcast. So I certainly appreciate you taking your time, and I've been looking forward to this interview just to hear the story, and to see where it all came from. You know what I mean? So I certainly. I always do ask everybody, is there anybody else you want to thank or anything that we missed that we need to cover?
Man, ain't no telling what all we probably missed. There's so many stories and stuff, but as far as my racing, it ain't never been about me. When I go to the racetrack, I leaned on the Lord, because I believe I got a good faith in Jesus, because
absolutely,
we're going to meet him one day.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And he ain't going to ask me how many feature races I won.
No.
He ain't going to worry about that.
Yeah, he ain't going to care.
Yeah, God ain't going to worry about that. So, I've always tried to, let that be the priority of racing. I tell Dale that now, regardless of what happens, let's leave here, And that ain't always been the case. I've showed out like anybody else, the races and acted stupid and,
Temper get the best of you sometimes.
It's going to happen,
Yeah.
But
that's the nature of it, though.
It is, because there can't be but one winner,
right.
But that's my ultimate thanks would be God be the glory. And I want, if anybody ever remembers me in racing or whatever, I want to remember that part of me.
Right.
That, that I always try to, if you're going to race and you're going to put the Lord's name on your car,
mm-hmm.
you need to live that life.
Right.
You don't need to just put it on there because you got it on there. Mama wants it on there. That you need to back that up, and that's where I want folks to remember me. Maybe,
right.
And but ultimately, I just thank the Lord for what He blessed me with and racing, and of course, my career really took off when Mr. Doug and Mr. Paul come along financially.
Yeah,
because I still the old hauler we got.
Yeah,
Mr. Doug built that thing.
Okay.
We're still using it. I had to buy it when he passed away, and all, but I still, there's stuff I would never got the opportunity if it hadn't been for him.
Right.
Even though he ain't here now and all, Mr. Paul, he's passed on, but that really changed my financial part was him, and then all the sponsors and mainly the fans that I had a real big fan base at Milton at one
fan.
time.
Absolutely.
And just, I would thank all of them people, if any of them watching it, you know. I know, I better say something about Michael Williams.
Yeah.
Because he's been messaging me saying that I better talk about him some, you know. Because he did. I remember one night, he reminded me of this story that they had twin features one night, and I had wrecked or something other than the first feature, and him and old Robert, what's Robert owns the body shop? I can't remember his last name. Anyway, they broke out Porta Powers and Jacks and all, and they pulled that thing out while I was doing stuff out and got it ready for the second feature. So there you go, Michael. You know, I thank you for he's my buddy. You know, he's my brother. But if I get naming names and all, I miss somebody. But, you know, I think about Clint a lot, Clint Holmes, you know, in the crate deal. I want to thank him because if he was still in the business, he'd be building my motors right now.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I never had 1 minute. I won a ton of races with his crate motors, you know. And he was good too. There's so many people. The Larrys, I always say the twin Larrys. You know, Larry Lambeth and Larry Boutwell.
Yeah.
You know, they were my heroes.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, Larry Boutwell, he always had the prettiest cars.
Damn sure
you
did.
know.
You were always 57, he was 58.
Yeah.
I mean, they were beautiful.
He was my hero. Even all the way back to when my dad raced at Flomaton, he had a 69 Chevelle. You know, Larry did he had the pipes running out the side.
The old boom tubes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And man, he's still today, you know, me and him real close. I call him my hero.
Yeah.
And Larry Lambeth, you know, I see him at the races now. His boys racing, you know, Nick, and he, you know, he's probably, you know, he made it. He won races like, to me, he was the god of late model racing.
Oh yeah.
Because I'd seen him win, you know, have a Tampa race at Milton.
Yeah.
And you know, who else has done that? You know, stuff like that back then.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Larry is. I'd love to sit down and speak and talk with Larry.
That'd be a good one. Now he can tell you some stories.
But he really was. He's a legend in his own right. You know, I mean, he's just done a lot for this area in racing and stuff. I'd love to sit down with him. And plus there's a tie there with Mr. Crenshaw and stuff like that.
Yep.
So I would love to sit down and speak with him.
Yeah, but that's some name. I mean, there's a lot more folks that's helped me. You know, my family too. You know, like I said earlier, my mom, she's been a big inspiration to me. Oh, and there's a guy I need to thank right now if he watches this is Wilson Eady. Yeah. He was my long time guy that come to the races with me. I don't know if y'all ever seen him. He's a little short guy. He's been with me forever, helping me at the races. And this is the first year he ain't been able to come with us. He's got some kind of pulmonary disease. And he ain't able to come. And man, I missed him so much at the races. He was one of them you could depend on. Right. Like now, some of Dale's buddies will show up at the races, you know, and want to help. Well, you can't tell if they're going to leave a wheel loose or whatever. Yeah. But now Wilson, when he was there, it didn't happen. He kept an eye on them. You know, he kept them straight. That's you know, and so Wilson, if you see this, man, I want you to know how much we miss you at the races. You know, it ain't the same without him.
That's right.
Absolutely.
But that's about it.
Well, I certainly appreciate it, and I again can't say it enough. I can't thank you enough for coming all the way down here and sitting down with us. And Jake, you got anything else, bud?
Yeah, just got to thank the people that make this podcast possible. 5-Star Medicare, Blackwater Bookkeeping, More Site Solutions, HP Graphics, Window World, and Levada Burroughs Century 21.
Well, again, Shep, we thank you for coming down here, Jake, and thank you. And this is episode 22 in the books.
This has been a production of the Short Track Media Group, LLC. Any unauthorized recording, reproduction, or distribution without express written consent from the Short Track Media Group, LLC is strictly prohibited and will result in legal action.